Now, let's talk about the Middle East. We're all watching these gripping, moving crises unfold day by day, country by country. But there is a broader story to be told, one that explains why the events in Tunisia have triggered a series of repercussions across the entire arc of Middle Eastern countries, from Morocco to Iran. I would argue that for the first time in 1,000 years, Arabs are taking control of their own affairs. You see, since the 11th century, Arab lands have been conquered and controlled by foreigners, first by the armies of Mongols, Persians, and Turks. In fact, most of the Arab world was ruled by the Ottoman Empire for centuries. Then, in the 19th century, came the Europeans, who carved up the region after World War I, creating most of the states we know today: Iraq, Jordan, Syria, all creations of the colonial powers. Then came the Cold War, with the superpowers protecting and funding their client states. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the US became the only game in town, and most regimes made their peace with Washington, though Iran tried to present itself as a rival regional power. Two American shifts have taken place that have unlocked the region. First, after 9/11, Washington became acutely aware of the fact that supporting Middle Eastern dictatorships had a downside. It was breeding an extreme anti-American opposition movement that had embraced terrorism, Al-Qaeda. So the United States began pushing its allies towards reform and offered much less unqualified support for the dictatorships and monarchies of the Middle East. Second, American power itself was waning. Iraq, Afghanistan, the financial crisis all showed that the U.S. was an exhausted superpower. The result? The United States is less willing and less able to play the old imperial role and prop up the old regimes. Now, throughout this almost 1,000 years of foreign domination, the Arabs always had local rulers. But these sheikhs and kings and generals were appointed or supported by the outside imperial powers. Most of the Middle East monarchies, for example, were created out of whole cloth by the British. Saudi Arabia is the important exception. Now, these local rulers were more skilled at negotiating up to the imperial authorities than they were at negotiating down to their own people. They ruled their people not through negotiations, but by force and bribery once the oil money began to flow. That game is in trouble, and the Middle East is witnessing a revolt against the old order everywhere. Where it will lead, where it will succeed, where it will fail, all this is totally unclear. But this is a big, system-wide and historic shift. So buckle your seatbelts. You're watching history in the making.